Welcome to the Existential Empath Podcast. My name is Tanya, and I am an intuitive empath. My intention is to share valuable tools and techniques that I have learned so you can tap into your own inner healer naturally and intuitively.
Welcome back. I hope everyone is doing well. Today, I thought I'd do a podcast on navigating through a dark night of the soul. So, a dark night of the soul is a purging process that calls us to release all that is unhealed or unnecessary, releasing all that is in the way of our highest good. And many around the planet right now are blindly sailing into new and uncharted waters, including myself. And this can be a little scary at times because, we as a society have been taught to stick with the known, right? Stick with what we know. And we are all moving in to an area of the unknown. And that can feel really scary. And, many of our daily distractions are being stripped away and replaced with a flood of fear around our health, around our safety, around our ability to have control in our lives. And this can cause a lot of unsettling emotions to build to the surface. And our safety and our security is really being shattered, kind of, because we are beginning to reestablish what that looks like from a higher vibrational frequency. And, many people around the world right now are in the depths of a global dark night of the soul. Now, when I say the dark night of the soul, there's not just one. I've been through several dark nights of the soul. I think my first one was back in 2010 when I went through a divorce and I shifted jobs and I started to go through my awakening process. And then I had another one probably in 2015, I believe, when I started to really open my eyes to what I was seeing in the healthcare industry. And I started to shift and move more into energy medicine. And I think recently I just went through another smaller one because now I'm beginning to strip away old layers of myself and old belief systems and things that I once thought I believed in. I'm now beginning to expand my consciousness and have a deeper understanding to things. And so I think this last one that I went through, I was a little bit more prepared for it. And I think as you begin to go through these dark nights of the soul, you begin to recognize the signs a little bit easier. And, it may sound like a terrible concept, but if you have ever been through one, you understand how incredibly difficult, but yet transforming that it can be. And it usually directly precedes an awakening. And, right now on the planet, there is a global mass awakening happening. And the dark night of the soul can open us up to begin to question the deeper meaning of life and the reality that we've been spoon fed to believe since the day we were born. And it is the soul's journey into, living in greater light, peace, and harmony, and even connection. So, as hidden information begins to be revealed more and more and more, this makes it really difficult to navigate through because our belief systems are being shattered. We are beginning to learn that we've been lied to for a really long time. And that can be really unsettling for many of us because when we firmly hold on to our beliefs around education or religion or healthcare or relationships or whatever it may be, and then we realize that what we were taught was not true or no longer resonates as our truth, it can really be difficult to navigate through that. And so, many people are having revelations right now and they will start to seek out their own truth. And that's what happened to me all the way back in 2010 is I started to question things more. I started to see between the lines. I began to see the illusions, and it created a very deep dive into many rabbit holes for me. And, when that happened, I had to pull away from a lot of my friends and family because their truth was not resonating with my truth, and my truth was changing. And I think that's the most important thing to understand is when we do go through these dark nights of the soul, that our truth changes. And that's okay because, the only constant in the world is change, right? And so as we begin to expand our consciousness and we begin to grow our minds around certain concepts, it's just normal for things to change. And so what may be your truth may not be my truth because we could be on different frequencies or different vibrations. And so, the dark night of the soul is a natural process during awakening, and it's kind of called the seeker stage when you begin to start to question things, and then you want to find out more, and then you begin to dive more into the truth. And it can also be followed with the hermit stage, and I've talked about this in previous podcasts. Is when you begin to seek the truth, and all of those around you are still holding on to that old timeline or that old paradigm, and you are now beginning to shift your thoughts and beliefs around things, then it is natural to want to disconnect from their story. Because their story no longer resonates with your story or the story that you're beginning to learn about. And that story may change, because at least that's been my situation is, I go from one story to the next story, but a lot of it is because we go through these dark nights of the soul and these seeker stages where we are really diving in to find, what is true for us, what resonates for us in that now moment. And so, everyone has a role, and we will all need to give and receive in a variety of ways, but, just understand that that hermit stage is a powerful stage, because that allows you to separate from others, to tune into your own thoughts and your own energy, so that way you're not being distracted or bombarded by the external thoughts of others. So, you know whether that means that you're actually being there for friends or sharing things with them, I know that that can be a very difficult time, because you want them to see things from your perspective, from your expanded state of consciousness, but they may not be ready for that. They may not be there. And so that can be really difficult. And I went through that when I first started to wake up. I wanted to wake up my whole family, and they just weren't there. They were looking at me like I was crazy, and they weren't there. But now they're where I was. They are where I was, at that time. So we all go through our own stages of awakening. And so I wanted to kind of talk about that. And, when we call this the dark night of the soul, it's also symptoms of a Kundalini awakening. So the Kundalini is that energy that moves up from the base of the spine and works its way up through our chakras and out of our crown chakra. And so the dark night of the soul is a natural part of this awakening process. It's, kind of shedding away those old layers of self, letting go of those old belief systems that no longer resonate. And we will feel that inability to connect, because the universe is kind of asking us to look more inward during these times. And so we will feel this sense of being alone, and because our reality is changing. Some of the signs that you may be going through a dark night of the soul is that everything around you seems to be breaking down, and you are beginning to question things more. You might feel confused or lost, or you may even feel like life is meaningless or empty, or even lonely for that matter, because no one understands you. No one is seeing through the illusion. And, the good thing is that more and more people are waking up, and more people are seeing through it. But when you first begin to wake up, you've been vibrating at a certain frequency. And when you begin to wake up, to the illusion, what happens is everyone around you is still vibrating at that frequency. And until you break through that, you will begin to attract other people who will see through the illusion too. But it takes a little bit of time. And that's where this dark night of the soul comes into play. And you may not feel satisfied or joyful in the things that normally make you happy anymore. And that's because you're shifting timelines. You're literally shifting from one reality of yourself to a newer version of yourself. And that can look like life has no meaning or purpose for you and that you're going through an existential crisis. And I felt like that because, when I started to go through that, it was like, is this just me? Is this just me going through this? But no, I began to realize it was not just me. And I also got to the point where I felt like I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to completely disconnect from everyone and anything that was a distraction to me because I just wanted to gather my own thoughts, find my own information, do my own research, so that way I could figure out, what are my thoughts around this? All of this stuff going on in the world, and how can I kind of weed through all of the BS, all of the belief systems that have been, programmed inside of me since the day I was born, and how do I move through that? And so, you might definitely, feel that sense of demoralization a little bit, like, oh my gosh, I feel like all of my efforts pushing towards my life and everything that I've done up until this time just means nothing. It just means nothing because it was a part of a belief system that may have been created from your parents or from your parents' parents or from your teachers or from your friends. And now you're just beginning to question, have I been leading my life as a lie? And that's exactly where I was at, specifically working in healthcare. So, you know, when you go through the dark night of the soul, there's a very deep purging process that happens. And that can look like crying, screaming, even being nauseous and vomiting, or bouts of sweating, lots of sleeping, or lots of non sleeping. I know for me, I was just up all night long diving into different topics, whether that be conspiracy or Dolores Cannon or understanding the universe a little bit better. I don't know, but I just would find myself all night long diving into these topics and then having to get up in the morning to go to my 3D job. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is just draining the heck out of me. But it was because I was purging. And that's when I began to really release a lot of, those unprocessed emotions that I had been holding on to for so long. So, purging is a way to rid your body and your spirit of those negative thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and energies that may be holding you back. So, listen to your mind and rid yourself of those negative energies because it will bring you that inner wisdom. And you may experience terrifying thoughts, in this process. I mean, I remember when I first started diving into some of the conspiracy stuff, I literally had terrifying thoughts that the men in black were going to knock on my door. And I was just like, okay, this is ridiculous. Once I began to recognize that everyone was going through this to some extent, that that was a program, that was a belief system that was in my mind. And, I kind of laugh at it now, but at the time, I remember I was just like, if I click on this website, will they show up at my door? Which just sounds so funny now. But, at the time, it was very real to me because I was breaking through these programs and these belief systems. And then I began to recognize that my dreams were so vivid. I was waking up and I was confused. My body was vibrating. I was, having these visions of myself in other bodies, in other timelines, other lives, and I didn't know what was happening. But, I began to start a dream journal and I began to write down all of the things that I was feeling and sensing, through my dream state. And that helped me to kind of put some of the pieces of the puzzle together. And that's what really led me into the quantum healing hypnosis, because I had had a session and it kind of pieced together some of my dreams. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. Like I could really learn a lot about myself and have a deeper understanding of my multidimensionality. And so our dreams are very important. And it's kind of our brain's way of trying to make sense of the dark night of the soul, even in our sleep state. So, it can be a little, alarming at first, and you may start to have nightmares because you are cleansing and clearing some of those darker, heavier emotions. And when we dive into that dark night of the soul, oftentimes we are diving into shadow work as well. And when we're doing that, we are balancing the dark and the light within our being and our existence. So, just be very patient with yourself. I know that can be a really scary time. At least it was for me, because I was having the nightmares. And so also, another sign that you might be going through a dark night of the soul is you may find that your body wants to flee from where you are. You may not feel like, I want to be here anymore. I want to escape this reality. I don't want to live here anymore. This is my situation when I lived in Florida. I just did not resonate there anymore. I wanted to be out of healthcare. I wanted to be out of the state. I wanted to be somewhere in the mountains. I wanted to be in cooler weather. Every ounce of me just wanted to be out, and I couldn't figure out how to do it. But then once I went through my hermit stage and I came out of that, it was almost like you're that caterpillar stage in your cocoon, and then you come out and you're like, all right, I'm a totally new person now. And that's exactly what happened to me. Is I went through that very deep dark night of the soul, and I came out transformed, and I started my business. I quit my job in healthcare, and I moved across the country from Florida to Washington State. And I did that all by myself, and everyone around me was terrified for me. Honestly, my friends and family were like, how are you doing this by yourself? And I'm like, I am doing this, I mean, I just knew my soul was guiding me. I knew I was safe. I knew I was protected. And you may also feel guided to go to sacred sites or to travel a little bit more. I did that as well. I felt like I just needed to find myself again, right? And so it's it was something that was very important to me, was to kind of figure out, where do I come from, because everything that I was learning, all the way up until that time, was obviously starting to dismantle in front of my eyes. And I began to recognize that, all of the belief systems that I was carrying were not mine. They were taught to me through, whether that be my parents or my schooling or whatnot, but it just was making it very difficult for me. So I felt like this very strong urge to travel and to visit these sacred sites and just really go within and figure out who it was that I was, And so you may also start experiencing strange coincidences or synchronicities. And that was one of the things that really opened my eyes, as I started to see number sequences. I remember seeing 9/11 nonstop. And every time I'd see it, it was like, why am I seeing 9/11? I would immediately go back to the Twin Towers, that fell, and so I'm like, why am I seeing that number? Because that was a program for me. When I would see 9/11, I would think of the Twin Towers in New York City. And then I started to learn about angel numbers. And when I learned about that, basically 9/11 was slow down and observe and pay attention. And in that moment in my life, I was just nonstop, go, go, go. I was working in healthcare, and my hours were just around the clock. I was working days and nights, and I just had no time for myself. And so those numbers were waking me up to slow down. And so once I started to do that, I started meditating. I started taking better care of myself. I started eating. I started eating healthy, fasting, doing, just things that made me feel better. And in that time is when I started to see 1111. And I looked that information up and realized I was going through what's known as a spiritual awakening. And then after that, it was just 44, 444, 333, 555. I mean, it was just nonstop. And so now I kind of look at it as, when I'm seeing those synchronistic numbers, I am on my path. And it's kind of like a little validation that I am where I am meant to be. So if you're beginning to see those number sequences, it's a really good sign that you are moving through your awakening process, and you will find yourself hungering for growth, whatever that looks like. You have all of these questions, about the universe, about your guides, about, all of maybe all the religion that you've been taught your whole life, and you start to question it, and you start to look at things from a more spiritual standpoint. You begin to recognize and notice that we're all connected, and that we are all one, and that there is, a universal source energy that drives us, a chi, a prana, and you'll begin to open yourself up to these new ideals and these new ways of thinking. Now, when you do that, the universe often puts us in these tough situations to kind of show us, who supports us when we have nothing, or if we are in these darker stages in life. And so, those around you may not energetically align, especially if you are, say you're ingrained in the Catholic religion and everyone around you has that belief system. And then now you're beginning to question, the religion, and now you're moving out into more spiritual aspects, and they're going to start having a difficult time with that potentially. And so it's because you're shifting your frequency and you're shifting your reality. And this can cause us to separate from people. And that's when we can catapult ourselves into a dark night of the soul or a Kundalini awakening, because it can be very painful, when you're observing these people around you and that they are not changing as you are changing. But I think the reality of all of this is what's meant in a dark night of the soul is it's meant for you to be alone. It's meant for you to go within and break free from these loop cycles that have been created through our subconscious mind and through our programming. And so, when we go through this dark night of the soul, it may feel very lonely and it may feel very disconnected. You may feel like you don't belong anywhere. And that can be really hard. I know I felt that way. I was beginning to wake up to the healthcare aspects in life, and I was working in it, and it was literally making me nauseous. Every time I'd go to work, I felt nauseous because my belief system was no longer resonating with what I was seeing, in the hospitals and in the pharmaceutical industry. So, this is teaching us to learn to stand on our own 2 feet and to have faith in our own power. And this is achieved through this dark night of the soul, or this existential crisis, so to speak. And so, when we travel through this darkness alone, which are in those lower vibrational states of consciousness, we can find ourselves, kind of those fractals of ourself, and pull ourselves back together, cleanse ourselves of that shadow, and move ourselves into these higher frequencies, which then as a result will feel much lighter, will feel much more clarity in our lives, and we will allow ourselves to shed those old belief systems. And that unfortunately can also be shedding some of the people or even places that we were accustomed to in that old timeline. And so, old memories may start to resurface, and you may find that strange, because I know with me, they were resurfacing quite a bit. It was almost like, gosh, I don't even know. When you watch a movie and someone dies, and then they have this whole life summary kind of flash before their eyes, and then they, maybe they come back to life. Maybe they were being coded or had a heart attack or something, and then they come back to life. That's kind of how I felt my dreams were. I was having these visuals of my life flash before me, and then I would wake up and realize I wasn't in that life anymore, or I was moving out of that life. And it got really confusing for me. And so I also began to have different views on death during that. Now, I think working in organ donation as well, and seeing all of the death that I saw, and seeing the other side, and seeing the mists and the shadow beings, I think that played a huge role in it as well. But also, when we go through the dark night of the soul, we begin to realize that there really is no death. It's just a transition of energy. It's a transition into a different vibrational frequency. And that can be very profound, for people, because then we begin to realize that we don't lose our loved ones. They're always there with us. They just aren't there in the physical, because they have transitioned into a different vibrational frequency. And so, as we begin to recognize these things and open ourselves up to having a deeper meaning and a deeper understanding, it's, we begin to feel a little bit more free, and that feels good, right? It feels good because we're letting go of these heavy, programs and systems that we've been holding on to our whole life. And that can be terrifying and freeing all at the same time. At least I knew it was for me. But it is necessary to experience all of this alone, because through our own power, we can come to realize our own strength. And it's like that caterpillar becoming the butterfly, and moving through those stages is the only way out. Really, we can't go around it. We have to move through it. And this will also strengthen our faith and our trust in our inner guidance, and tuning in more to our intuition, and having a deeper understanding of our own thoughts and our own energy, and discerning the thoughts and energy of those around us that play a huge role in how we may be living our life. And so, how do we balance ourselves during this time? How do we take care of ourselves during the dark night of the soul? If you're going through one right now, honestly, just be very gentle and be very patient with yourself, and forgive and let go. I think that's one of the best things to do is, if anger comes up, let it come up, but don't hold on to it forever. Just let it move through you, and just forgive yourself for, holding these belief systems. Forgive yourself for maybe following the pack or following others. It's okay. We all do it, right? We've all done it. We've all been there. We didn't know any better. That was our level of consciousness at the time. So, I think for me, it was just, I kept wanting to beat myself up. And but the reality is that's what I was taught. That's what I was taught to do. And I was following a path that wasn't authentically mine. And until, we wake ourselves up to that recognition, right, we begin to then now take control and move more in a genuine and authentic way in our life. And we have to focus on what we can control. We can't control how we were raised or how we were programmed, right? But we can control how we move forward in our life from this point forward and from this now moment. And, it's important to take time to rest too. Like I said, I went through a lot of nights of insomnia, just wanting to dive into the rabbit holes. And that made me very tired. And so, just rest and ask for help if you need it, if you can handle that, if you can handle people being around you. I think for me, when I would ask for help, it just made it more stressful. I was just better off being alone. But if you're really struggling and you want someone to help, reach out to someone who may be going through this or may have already gone through a dark night of the soul before and can assist you. Try to eat as well as you can, eat as healthy as you can, drink plenty of water. That really does help. Stay off of social media if you can. That may cause triggers. That may make you more irritable or more upset. Learn how to say no if, people are really trying to siphon your energy or trying to get you to do things that you don't want to do, and all you want to do is disconnect and be alone. Then that's okay. That's okay. But also, it's important to get out and do things too. So even if it's alone, get out and take a walk in nature, maybe go for a dip in the lake, or, do things that bring you a little bit of happiness during this time, because it's almost like a state of depression a little bit. I guess that's the way I explained it, because you are kind of grieving the loss of your old self, and you're unsure of what your new self looks like. So it's like you're kind of in between when you're in that dark night of the soul stage. And that is really scary and really terrifying. And so just be very, very gentle on yourself. Maybe make some time for some passion projects if that's something that will help you heal and also help you find your truth and move through some things. And exercise if you can, do those types of things that will make you happy. But, this energy that we have right now coming through too is very powerful, and it's dismantling a lot of the belief systems that we're carrying, including myself. I'm feeling it every single day. And so we are being guided to return to our soulful, authentic selves. And, this is where we all need to be. And this is the area that we are all working in, and how we are moving into this direction as a collective. And so it can cause a lot of different sensations in our mind, in our body, and in our spirit. And so we really need to just be gentle with ourselves and really allow ourselves that self-care that we need. And, it can be really hard when we're going through this, but I want you all to know that, you're not alone. You are not alone in this process, and you will get through this. You might be a different person on the other side, or you will be a different person on the other side, but it's kind of similar to an airplane. When an airplane takes off and it's in the clouds and you're looking out the window and you can't see anything, And if there's some turbulence, and it can be a little scary, but once you get up above those clouds and you see that blue sky and you see the sunshine and you can see that everything is okay, then you will get through this. You will get through the dark night of the soul. You are just in the clouds right now, and it feels turbulent and it feels scary and it feels unknown, but you will get through this. I got through this. I was scared. It was very unknown, but I have every ounce of confidence, and I believe in each and every one of you that you will get through this. So I hope that this information was helpful for all of you who may be experiencing a dark night of the soul right now. And I send you all so much uplifting, loving, peaceful energy. Take care.
You deserve to navigate your life as an empath in alignment with health, happiness, and abundance. To learn more about the services that I provide, including Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis, EFT Tapping, and the Emotion Code, visit my website at www.thesoulcafe.org.